It's interesting because yeah, we are getting towards Forbidden Door, and I know there's a lot of discontent. I don't know if it's discontent, but there's a lot of yeah, just some talk out there that there's a lot of AEW show matches on this Forbidden Door card, not a lot of New Japan stuff, right? And I talked about it on stream, but I'm going to reiterate a couple of points here in case you don't join me on stream. You should pop in on a stream once in a while on the YouTube channel. That'd be nice. It's a nice time. It's fun. It's fine. It's nice and fine. But I do want to point out that this discussion around Forbidden Door not feeling very Forbidden Door-y, it's like partially open door and all sorts of gags like that. And it's fine. It's fine. I'm all for jokes. I'm all for memes. Go right ahead and do it. But I think that I think one thing that we have to sort of come around to as AEW fans, New Japan fans, is we have to come around to the idea that these Forbidden Doors shows are going to feel less and less like these big time shows where there's all of these impossible matches that are finally happening. We have to let that aspect go. I think we're done with that. I don't think it's reasonable, at least now, and from probably a couple of years. I know it kind of started last year, but this year it's particularly significant because look, there hasn't been anything announced on the New Japan side for this show outside of Hiroshi Tanahashi saying I'm going to wrestle my last UK match at Forbidden Door. There's been jack shit. Like there's been nothing. There are reasons for that. And there's a couple of them. First and foremost, as long as Forbidden Door is being held in August, this is what we're going to have to deal with because we're right in G1 territory, right? We're the heavyweights, the guys that you want to see, they're not available. They're all in the G1. They're all doing stuff, and they're going to be doing this right up until the 15th, the 14th. I think is the last night, something to that effect, the 14th of August, 15th. It's either one of those two dates. It's just escaping me now. But it's like there's no one that's going to jump off the tour to fly to Cincinnati or Cleveland, as it was last night, to do an angle and then fly back to get back on the tour. That's just not happening. That's just not a thing that's going to happen. And that's a reality that we're going to have to deal with, right? This idea, look, unless like Forbidden Door gets moved to what? April, May? May is when we do Best of Super Juniors. Unless we move it to there, where then all the heavyweights are available because it's the Best of Super Juniors tour. All the heavyweights, are just like dicking around. Unless we do that, there is no real. We're going to have to temper our expectations in that regard. I think there's also the idea that the matches are not as forbidden as they were, right? Whereas when Forbidden Door launched a few years ago, what is it, 4 years ago, when it was launched, it was a big deal because it was the release of Harold Mage and all that era. We were finally releasing that. We were finally breaking free of that. And Harold Mage said he never worked with the elite guys because of the way they left and so on and so forth. Now it's like the ice had thawed, and now what was unthinkable became very possible. Then you could start pumping away at all these dream matches, like Danielson and Okada, for instance. But we've passed that point. We've passed that point where we have the dream matches waiting for us. I don't know what they are anymore. I don't know what's left as far as New Japan and AEW is concerned. I don't know what's left. We've done quite a bit, and the fact now, the reality is that there are so many crossover shows throughout the year, or opportunities for talent to cross over. There's a lot more sheen that's been taken off of Forbidden Door in that respect. I don't think it's necessarily intentional. I think you have to go with the ebbs and flows of the market. But look like what happened just a couple of weeks ago. Well, a couple of months ago at this point, in June. With the week that everyone spent in Mexico, right? You had AEW that was there. You had New Japan that was there. CMLL was hosting everyone, and then you had that great Arena Mexico show on Tuesday, right? Then you had the Arena Mexico, the Grand Slam Mexico show, which was terrific, which was really, really good. And then you had the Fantastic Mania show at the end of the week. So, you had your opportunities for crossover there. And there's been more, the possibilities for wrestlers to cross over and wrestle guys from other promotions has been a lot more fluid than it's been in years. And this all happens outside of Forbidden Door. So, we're going to be getting Mystico, for instance. I know it's not necessarily in Japan, but we're going to be getting Mystico and MJF outside of the confines of Forbidden Door. Probably. Most likely. So look, if you ask me, I think it's better and healthier that the three partners, right, they work together all throughout the year. I think that's a better sign than just waiting for this one time in the year where this is where we're working and there's nothing else. I think that's better overall. The side effect is that it takes some shine away, some sheen away from AEW, not from AEW, but from Forbidden Door. And then here's the last really significant thing I believe that we should all be keeping in our mind when it comes to Forbidden Door. Obviously Forbidden Door, I think, and I say obviously, maybe it's not that obvious, but in the way it's constructed and put together, it's a show I feel is more geared towards Western wrestling fans. That was a mouthful for no reason. Western wrestling fans as opposed to, the Japanese fans. So if AEW right now is stacking up the top of the card with its own matches, and people are upset about that, and so, well, where are the New Japan matches? Well, the question then that I have to ask is, who do you put in these top drawing matches? Who are the guys from New Japan that you put up there? Okay, Tanahashi has announced that he's going to be wrestling his last match. So we're waiting around to see who's going to be the nominee, who's going to be jumping in to wrestle the last match with him. He's a top guy, that's fine. But if it's not him, who else is it going to be? Who can come out there and you say, hell yeah, like Hangman Adam Page versus, and then I hear Zack Sabre Jr. And look, I agree. Zack is great, and he's the world champion right now. He's a tremendous pick, but again, he's a guy right now who's caught in the G1. And he's probably, for Western fans, probably the only other guy they have on the roster right now who has, who's really meaningful for for Western fans of New Japan and whatnot, right? Particularly in the UK. I think so sure, if you wanted to do a world champion versus world champion main event, that would rule actually, because then all the politics behind that and so on and so forth, I'd be super into it. But okay, so let's say we discard Zack Sabre Jr. Yota Tsuji, he's fine and all, but I like Yota Tsuji enough, but is he a guy that you throw there in a tippy top main event match? Who's the dream match for Yota Tsuji? Same goes with Yuya Uemura, or run down the list. Shota Umino, Ryohei Oiwa. Look, hey, I like Ryohei Oiwa a lot, but I don't know how not main event, but I'm not sure how acquainted Western wrestling fans are with Ryohei Oiwa. You maybe, because you're a pro wrestling fan and you tend to you tend to watch a lot of stuff. And if you're listening to me, there's a good chance that you know who he is and you have a certain level of appreciation for him. But I'm talking like your run-of-the-mill fans who aren't like plugged in the ways that we are, right? That aren't like turbo wrestling nerds. Who's the guy? Who is the guy who does it? Who's like, so New Japan has to settle that issue on their end too, where they don't have the guys. Gabe Kidd would have absolutely found his way onto this card. I was actually thinking that they were going to pull Omega Kid 2, right? Off of the big match that they had at Wrestle Dynasty. I was sure that we were going to do the second one in Forbidden Door. That's the kind of thing you can negotiate for. Okay, well, we'll do the first one here, and then the second one, the other guy will get the other guys will get the rematch, basically. Kind of like what they did with Okada and Danielson, right? I don't know what to I don't know what to say. I don't know how you can look at the situation with the card with who's on the card in New Japan and say, oh yes, these will be my top people. Yeah, Shingo Takagi's a great guy, but he's an underpushed commodity. They don't push him in New Japan anymore, right? And I don't think he has. I don't think, like, he's a guy that we turbo nerds really, really like, but I don't think he's got that appeal to a larger audience. We saw it with Tetsuya Naito as well. When Tetsuya Naito would come to North America, he's a huge fucking superstar. But for the AEW crowds, it was a little more tepid. He didn't get the reactions that Kazuchika Okada, for instance, would get back in the day, or even Will Ospreay and so on and so forth, or Hiroshi Tanahashi. So again, like, I don't know who New Japan has to offer that would make the Forbidden Door card, really, really special in a crossover event, with crossover matches up and down the card. And I think Tony Khan realizes it, and he's like, well, I got to book my top guys for my pay-per-view, because I'm not going to depend on Shingo Takagi versus Hangman Adam Page as a draw. And I think he's right. The thing is that he's right. New Japan has to work out there. New Japan has no one. They have no stars. They have no top guys. Naito's gone. Tanahashi's got, like, he's ending active competition at the end of, in 5 months. He's done. And he's, like, physically he's done right now. So you can't really count on him to tear the house down in a big time main event. They got no one. They have no one lined up. There's not an ace in this company anymore. So they have to figure out their shit too. Like, everyone, again, you can go and blame AEW on this and say, AEW only booking their guys. What the fuck is this, Tony Khan? But you're missing the broader picture. There's a much bigger picture to this, as it usually is. And I think a lot of the onus falls on New Japan for not having any stars to fill this star-studded show. I sincerely believe that. So I think for the next couple of years, until the partners get their act together, and, unless suddenly the partners stop working with each other throughout the year to privilege, like, 1, maybe 2 times in the year that they actually do some cross-promotional work, Forbidden Door is not going to be what it used to be. And and we're going to stop having this conversation because at least we have to stop having this conversation because we have to come to grips with this. We have to come to grips with this reality. It's here. It's real. It's happening. Forbidden Door is just not what it used to be, and it will not for a while. How about that? Okay.